Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I, Nakia Gopalwala,
And
student of MSc Medical Technology,
And I, Atulya Vijayan, student of BSc Medical Technology from Symbiosis Institute of Health Sciences, will take you forward to our next session on technology towards advancement of allied healthcare professionals.
over the past few years, technology has become a major factor of competition in the entire healthcare industry. The quality of facilities plays an important role in shaping the healthcare programs. Existing and future technologies in healthcare will greatly influence the way healthcare is practiced and delivered. Advanced technology would help in improving health related aspects such as early and precise diagnosis, patient monitoring and safety, as well as reduction of medical errors.
May I now invite Mr. Arun Krishnan, Senior Project Manager, Biomedical Engineering and Technology Innovation Center, IIT Bombay, and Dr. Ambuj Chaturvedi, Senior Vice President, ICICI Knowledge Park, Hyderabad, onto the dais.
Our first speaker, Mr. Arun Krishnan, is the Senior Project Manager at Biomedical Engineering and Technology Innovation Center, also known as BETIC, IIT Bombay. Sir is involved in implementing medical device innovation programs to strengthen, sustain, and scale up innovative project activities. He acts as a liaison between various stakeholders to foster translational research, product innovation, entrepreneurship, and mentoring interdisciplinary teams for medical technology projects. We now request Sir to please address the audience.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you, Symbiosis, for conducting this conference and inviting me to be part of it. Today, on focus area would be technology and innovation empowering allied health professionals. In this session, I'm not going to talk about any technology, futurist technology, which is there. I think multiple people have covered already those topics. So I want to stay to what is, from virtual reality, what is the reality in our country and what could be done to make sure transformation in healthcare can happen in our country. So globally, what is happening is there is technology infusion in healthcare happening, starting from 1.0, 2.0, we're somewhere between 3.0 to 4.0, where we started with patient encounter, simple diagnosis and treatment, and moving towards medical equipments, digital imaging, digital tracking, CT, MRA machines which are there. Then from there, we move to electronic records, telehealth, and we are looking at smart health, connected care, personalized medicine, AI, and somewhere we would also reach to virtual care. Being, say, you have a military surgeon and very valuable resource, and you don't want them to go to the field and actually operate the directly operate. It's a risky task. So we might get into that stage where the surgeon can even stay at their hospital and take care of the trauma which is happening to the soldiers or who are fighting for us. So all of that, if you look at the technology transformation, it's all focused on patient-centric healthcare services. Now, patient-centric healthcare services need people, infrastructure, technology, all in place to make sure that patient is the right kind of treatment is given to the patient. If you look at our country's current healthcare professionals, just the people which we are falling shortage of healthcare professionals. They're distributed uneven geographically. Very few infrastructure for training and also for allied health professionals as well as health professionals. You can see the rehabilitation-related healthcare forces are shortage by 18 lakhs. If you look at dental assistant technology-related people, are shortage by 20 lakhs. Although more the reason that technology is needed, there is no running away from the technology. We have to adapt it. All the healthcare professionals has to adapt and make sure that we would be able to deliver the right kind of service to the patients. Coming from the healthcare, what is happening in medical device industry, we have been bombarded with high cost, good quality products from the Western countries and low cost, lesser quality product from the Eastern countries. We have regulations in place. The situation is not dark, there's a ray of hope. Where are very suitable or very significant local needs which are there in our country, which need to be addressed. And there's a lot of technology push which is happening in multiple areas of 3D printing, AI, machine learning, augmented reality, cloud. We are good with technology. So bringing both these two together is where the Indian medical device industry can grow. The ray of hope is innovation, be it product innovation or process innovation. That is what is required for India to be innovating. India is innovating right now. Now, to look at what are the streams which will flow to creating this process and product innovation, multiple streams, medicine, design, management, allied health professionals, all coming together to make sure that product or process innovation will happen. Although the innovation is required, there is valleys of death. Or allied health professional today or a health professional faces a problem which is unmet clinical need, and there is a solution, a concept in their mind, and to make it a reality, the valleys of death which has to be crossed. For a concept to proof of concept to prototype to product to finally reaching the market and actually touching the patient and creating value to the patient is a long journey. So a single person or a healthcare professional or engineer is not going to very difficult for them to cross the valleys alone. So what we need is a team, bringing together a team where these engineering clinician side and engineers can together make sure that the values are close. So what could be done is, so we are BETIC, Biomedical Engineering Technology Innovation Center. We act like a running partner for medtech innovators. The medtech innovators can be anyone who wants to make a change in the healthcare system in the country, be it allied healthcare professionals, your engineers, anyone who wants to make a change. We call them medtech innovators. It could be small-scale industries who are only in distribution, they don't have an R&D, and they want to develop something in the country. We help them. If there is a young innovator and they want to solve a problem which is a pressing need in the country, and we help them cross the valleys of death. So we are supported by Rajiv Gandhi Science and Technology Commission, DST, ICMR, Biodac, and NEC Foundation. With whatever we have done, they have seen the value a center like this could bring in changing or transforming the healthcare system in the country. So we have been fortunate that there's support from the government agencies and foundations in that sense. How we do is we have a very defined innovation process. We are ISO 13485 certified lab, one of the first labs or centers in an academic center to have ISO 13485. So it is very simple 4-step process: define, develop, deliver, deploy. It all starts with the clinician or giving or figuring out there's an unmet clinical need which is there in the hospitals and how that can be solved. So we form the team, which includes multiple streams, as I said before. A clinical immersion program to say one doctor would be feeling there's an unmet clinical need. Validate with 100 other doctors is what is required to make sure it's not just one doctor who's facing the problem, but multiple of such doctors are facing, making sure that it's a significant need in the country. Then we get into the development phase. We create prototype, deliver. There is preclinical studies required, human trials, the device certification, and finally deploying IP and others. We make sure that clinician who is the clinical champion in our process also is part of the IP. So, it's because that's where it all started. If you look at that, we have already received around 400 plus unmet clinical needs, which is huge in the country. We were able to develop a 250 proof of concepts, 50 prototypes, and finally 25 products. So from 400 to 25 products is what we were able to do. Rest all eaten up by the demons in the valleys. We are a small facility in IIT Bombay, 2,500 square feet, with which we are trying to do what is possible. We have electronics prototyping center. We have plastic prototyping, metal 3D printing, titanium alloy implant 3D printing machines. We have other medical grade machining devices also in place. We have other centers, similar centers in COE, College of Engineering Pune and VNIT Nagpur. We have clinical validation. For clinical validation, we have MGM, who's helping us with gait analysis and other which is required for rehabilitation devices. So one BETIC or one center in institute is not going to solve the problem. So we need such innovation process built in the ecosystems which we have. So we have partner institutes to whom we have shared our innovation process and how this can be done, so that they can train multiple other professionals, and then we can together, transform the healthcare system. So engagement pipeline for any health professionals or anyone, any medtech innovator, is that we start with the clinical problems. So there is a program called MEDHA, Medical Device Hackathon, where there's clinical problems which is floated by the clinician or any healthcare professional, is validated with multiple doctors and other stakeholders, hospital management, other stakeholders which are there, and we understand it's a pressing need, significant need which needs to be solved, and maybe develop a concept or possible concept at the end of meta. If the team also feels that, okay, this is worth solving and we want to take it forward, we have something called MEDIC, which is Medical Device Innovation Camp. It's a 5-day intensive program. Day and night, people working together, and at the end of it, we create a prototype which is serving the functional requirements of the unmet clinical need. Now, after which the greater value of death, which was there of prototype to product, BETIC helps in converting that prototype to a final product, making sure it adheres to all the regulations required for medical devices, industrial design, all of that is taken care. So they join as fellows, or we have multiple programs through which they can convert this prototype to product. These products are then exhibited in MEDEX programs which we run. Then they incubated in business incubators, and then they go on scaling. So it all starts with bedside to bench to business to back to bedside. There's a few photos on the training which has happened for Metha. So anyone who's interested in health, who wants to create a change, a delta change in the healthcare system, they can join the training program, understand what is the process and how you can do it. And this is MEDIC, where you can see it has been held in multiple places. At the end of this, we create, so doctors also spend 24 hours with us, taking time, understanding the unmet clinical need. This has to be solved, so they take time out from their daily routine and spend time with the teams and make sure the prototype is delivered at the end of the 5th day. What we are able to do is 25 products. So these are few products which we have done. Head to toe, we are domain agnostic in that sense. So technology could be anything. It could be a simple Bluetooth technology. It could be as humongous as a virtual reality or a virtual care, which we're talking about. We can take small steps in making sure that the unmet clinical need is good. So you can see on the left-hand side, there is smart stethoscope, which we have developed. Every doctor here would have had a problem of during their MBBS time. The senior doctor would be telling them, can you hear the heart sound? Can you hear the murmur which is there? The young doctor would take the stethoscope, he or she would not understand the murmur. At the end, they will say, no, I understood. But most of the times it's missed out. And after a long time, they think, this is what the doctor said that day. But this could be solved with very simple technology, which is already available for a long time now. It's a simple module which can go in between your stethoscope, which can amplify the sound which is heard 16x times, noise filter whatever is the surrounding noise, and the doctor can hear. So he can actually keep it on the patient and put it on loudspeaker and make everyone listen. This is what the murmur which I was talking about. Additionally, there is data transmission through Bluetooth. So there is a specialized doctors, as we said, there's geographically unevenly distributed. Now you have a specialized doctor in the city, and there are junior doctors in rural areas, less sophisticated hospitals. They can actually place the stethoscope on the patient, and the specialist doctor on his or her senior doctor can say, this is a problem which needs to be, this is a murmur which needs to be taken care. So that is a simple technology which is taken an unmet clinical need. Then we have above knee processes. We have processes, a lot of processes in the country now. The problem is amputees already have difficulty walking, and we are asking them to come from rural areas to urban area to get a process done. It's already a difficult situation and you're asking them to come stay for a day or two and then get the process done. What we have done is any healthcare professional or anyone, a tailor in the rural area can take 16 measurements and the data that can be transferred to our sender, and the 16 data is extrapolated and a CAD model of their stump is formed, and we develop a design of processes for that person that is 3D printed, process is formed, and they can only come for the fitment test. So that is where a small technology of data or information traveling from one place to another can make a change. Now, looking at patient-specific implants, cancer is a major problem in the country, and we have mandibular resections, people who undergo mandibular resection. Now, there are standard implants which are available, and doctors try their best to make sure that they bend and twist the mandibular, the standard implants to adhere to the patient's anatomy. Now that means on the OT table, they are spending time while the surgery is going on, trying to adjust the standard implant and trying to conform to the anatomy. This is solved by the CT. The doctor sends a CT scan to us, says that this is how I'm going to operate, this is how I'm going to resect, this piece has to be replaced. So we look at it for the patient's aesthetic, as in making sure that the face is symmetric. We understand the anatomy of the other side. We design the implant which is patient specific for the opposite side. We 3D print using metal alloy. We post process it and it is delivered back to the doctor and it is being implanted to the patient. So it's how multiple technologies like latest technology like 3D printing, data transferring, digital imaging all can come together to create an impact. Club foot monitoring Club foot is a condition where your child's foot are internally rotated, and this can be corrected with Ponsonby's method. Now, after the surgery is done, there is a problem that it is not adhered to. The problem is the braces are not worn, and conforming to that is a problem. So it's a very simple sensor which can be put, making sure how many times the kid wore it, and is the problem of kid wearing it or not wearing it. So when the data goes to doctor and doctor understands that is a problem of brace not being worn. So how sensor can come into play sensor integration is one technology. Now, how each one of you can create a transformation in healthcare in our country. Well-defined unmet clinical need is the first step in healthcare transformation, product, technology, innovation, which will include what, why, and for whom. As an example, you need a portable cabinet, which is what? To safely store medicines. Why? And in rural hospitals who. So I would request, I'll urge every one of you, healthcare professionals and allied healthcare professionals, to look at your daily activities which you're doing as a task and write down in a paper or anywhere that this is step 1, 2, 3, 4. And is that a pain point step or it's a valuable step which you're adding? So write it down, and this delta changes or improving this delta improvements in your daily activities is what at the end will transform our healthcare industry. For more information, you can visit our website www.betty.org. Instantly, there is a site, there is a page where if there is an unmet clinical need and you think that's a pressing need and needs to be solved, you can always submit that unmet clinical need, and then we can see how that can transform healthcare in the country. Thank you all for it.
Thank you, sir. That was very informative. Our next speaker is Dr. Ambuj Chaturvedi, Senior Vice President, ICICI Knowledge Park, Hyderabad, a clinician by training. Dr. Chaturvedi is a surgeon with experience across multiple specialties and diverse healthcare delivery settings, with roles across commercial functions at Johnson & Johnson Medical India, followed by leadership roles at Medtronic India. Sir has transitioned into a senior leadership role at IKP, heading healthcare initiatives. At IKP, Sir leads multiple verticals, including an accelerator fund, D-Health Elite Enterprise Program, DEEP, that mentors and provides bridge funding for startups operating in the digital healthcare space. May I now request Sir to please address the audience.
Thank you. And how much time do I have? 15. Boy, I didn't know I wrote so much. She had a tough time actually going through the entire conversation. So is this, okay, this is on. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Ambuj Chaturvedi, and for the next, I'll try to keep this short because I understand that we already short on time. I'll try to finish this in 12 to 15 minutes. The deal is I need to see excited faces. As long as I get that, I'm probably going to keep my promise. So while Arun talked about what is needed, what are the kind of opportunities that are present within the medtech space, within the digital healthcare space for entrepreneurs, would-be entrepreneurs. In terms of devices, I'll be talking more on the digital healthcare space. Arun comes in from the IIT Bombay universe, I come from the IKP universe. We do collaborate a lot across multiple programs. But I'll be talking a little bit about the future. I'll be talking about some fancy stuff. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to give you a flavor of while you solve the problems of today, there's a host of opportunities that are going to be there for you tomorrow. And I hope that at least some of you get enthused by what I'm going to talk about over the next 10 to 12 minutes. And maybe some of you, when we meet later, would be working on one of those solutions. So the flow of thoughts is going to be, I'm going to talk about a short history of medical technologies. I'll be really quick on that one. Not that the history is short, it's just that I'm short on time. I'll give you a big picture view, the present, again a very short overview. Then I'm going to get into the present with some case studies. These are case studies of startups which have been spawned at IKP. IKP is the largest healthcare accelerator in the country today. We're close to about 800 startups, physically or virtually incubated. I'm going to talk about just 4 of them. Then we're going to get into the future. We're going to get into some major disruptions in the future. And then it's open for discussions if you still feel that you have the patience left. That's a short history of digital healthcare. In a sense, the summary of this slide is that, it all started in 1897. That was the first telecall that was delivered. And guess what? A patient of viral croup, cough as you call it, an infant patient of 3 years, was actually diagnosed purely on a phone call, and then the doctor interacted with the mother and the patient. So the point is that the entire concept of medical technology is digital health has been there for quite some time. It's only in the last couple of decades that the pace has caught up. 56, so it took almost 60 years for the next set of critical technologies and devices to come into place. Clinical USG was one, and even there, the first applications were military in nature, and only after the military applications of using sonar, actually to spot submarines and torpedoes, that's when it was brought into medical technology. But after that, when you start looking at innovations in molecular biology, DNA sequencing, the entire works, you start to see that there's a tremendous, the pace caught up. Now you see the next phase where you see a lot of associations being formed, and that typically happens. Initially, science, in medical science, typically borrows technologies from other disciplines. Then there's a host of associations that come in, momentum builds, and then finally you start looking at all the aspects around technologies being developed, digital therapeutics, wearables, FDA kind of providing validation to it, and then COVID happened. The reason why COVID, of the lot of negative things that COVID has, one of the positive things that quote unquote we can talk about COVID is that it did accelerate digital technologies, and so that's the reason why I put out there COVID as one of the key milestones in the development of digital healthcare. Now, there are multiple ways to predict. There are multiple ways to predict the future. You do it on how the past has behaved. And a lot of that is based on, what I feel. But what we've done now at IKP is we've kind of built a model. We call it, for the want of lack of creativity, we call it the 3 themes, 3 impact, 3 eras model. What it means is that when you look at when you look at healthcare, if you want to look at technologies all across and you want to map out how are these technologies going to go forward, there are three key themes on which the technology impacts. It could either be diagnosis, it could be treatment, it could be monitoring. Now, technology has an impact. There are three types of impacts that technology has. When technology enters any of these themes, it first complements the existing practitioner, then technology starts to compete with the practitioner, and then technology ultimately compensates. It means it almost replaces the practitioner, which is where you actually say this is fully automated. And so therefore, if you look at this, you have a 3x3 matrix. And when you look at those 9 boxes, what you get is actually the 9 eras. Now, if you start mapping over the last 100 years or so on how technology has been evolving, you'll find that technology first started complementing diagnosis. That's era 1. Then it went towards competing within the existing framework with practitioners. That's era 2. Then technology started complementing treatment, era 3. Then it went to complementing monitoring, which is era 4. Then it started compensating diagnosis, which is era 5. And finally, it went into, so at the current era, where the technology in the medtech industry is actually competing in monitoring. Now, if you start looking at specific examples here, that's where we are talking of era 1, which is that you're looking at technology complementing diagnosis, imaging tech. X-rays came when Röntgen came in the picture, and you found that X-rays were able to complement diagnosis. X-rays were able to show physician a picture into the patient's anatomy more, and so it complemented diagnosis. Gradually, you had biochemicals and biomedicals coming in, and you found that technology can now compete. So you have a physician who has the ability to do clinical examination, and then you have the biochemicals coming in, and they are giving you a different picture altogether. Not a different picture, I would say, but a very strongly comparative picture. You can diagnose a lot more when these come in across. And so therefore technology started competing. That's when biochemicals and biomedicals came in. The third piece was when technology started complementing the treatment part. So you could suture, now you could staple. You could ablate, but you could ligate, now you could ablate. And so therefore you have endomechanicals, energy-based devices coming in. And that was the third phase. This was about the 40s. This was World War II, around World War II. So the 40s to 60s was this phase. Then you started having technology which was complementing monitoring, which is the remote monitoring devices. This is when roughly about 80s to 90s. And then the last two, which is technology compensating AI-based diagnostics. We are now reaching a stage where certain AI platforms are so strong, so robust, that they can actually obviate the need to a large extent for the presence of a clinician. You still require a pilot to drive the aircraft, but essentially a lot of the automation has now been taken over by technology. And then, of course, you have digital therapeutics, which comes in where it competes with monitoring. Digital therapeutics is your technology's way of saying, hey, look, if you prescribed a treatment and you want adherence, I will ensure that this happens. And so, therefore, this is the stage where we are right now. This, ladies and gentlemen, is where the entire past of digital healthcare, this is where we are today. We're at AI-based diagnostics and digital health therapeutics. Now, this is the present. I won't go into details of this. A big digital healthcare market, lots of startups all across. We deal a lot with them. This is the program that we talked about, Digital Health Elite Enterprise Program. It was a program started by IKP to support specifically digital healthcare startups. These are startups which are commercial ready. They need bridge funding for scale up. We typically provide them about $100,000 to $150,000 over a period of 12 to 18 months for a small equity. Usually the instruments are convertibles in nature, and we look at a valuation multiple. They can exit after 12 to 18 months, depending on pre-Series A or Series A. Now, this is the first cohort of deep that we have. We've got a startup in the AR/VR domain, one in the telehealth domain, one in mHealth digital therapeutics, and one in the remote monitoring devices. A quick one out here would be this one works on the fMRI images of the brain. It tends to give an objective, it tends to convert the subjective diagnosis by a mental health professional into objective parameters. MRI has been used extensively for this. This team is doing great work. In fact, this team is now working with the assault systems to work on the FDA program for building a virtual brain. So, in the morning there was a discussion around simulation and all. One of the key areas where technology will start to play a role, and this is one of them, is where you reduce, not completely avoid, but reduce the need for clinical trials by actually having simulation platforms, a virtual brain, and you test all your drugs here. The next one is a specialty care telehealth service. It's called UB Care. They're looking at palliative care. In fact, we had a call last week. They will now move into onco care, converting the current hospital-based care delivery into a group practice-based delivery. So that's again another disruption that this portfolio startup will come in. This one's Fizi, set up by a husband-wife couple. What they've done is they've built a monitoring solution that you can put onto your joints. And the way it works is it then calculates the ROM, the range of movement of the joints, which helps a physiotherapist, but it also adds the EMG component. And so what it does is it combines these two parameters, correlates them, and then gives you a better idea about how your patient is complying with your physiotherapy regimes and whether your patient is improving or not. And then this is South Health. They are into digital therapeutics. They are more into, it's an AI platform. In a nutshell, this platform increases the engagement between a patient and a doctor. And the way it works is they've got multiple specialties all across. These guys have actually published an entire set of papers for Harvard, for the Harvard journals, where they're talking about digital phenotypes. And so this is the kind of work that has been done by deep portfolio startups till now. Now we go to the future. Okay, I'm still on time. So we go back to the 3 themes, 3 impacts, 9 eras model, and we look at those matrix. We talk about imaging tech, biochemicals, endomechanicals, remote monitoring, AI, and digital. What's next? You see 3 gaps. The next one is going to be surgical robotics. And so over the next decade or so, you will see a big chunk of work in the advanced medtech field being done in the area of surgical robotics. This is where technology will start to compete with a practitioner. Where are we right now? We've started building modular arms. We have a couple of solutions in the market. Intuitive Medical obviously is one of the oldest, but then there are other solutions that work in different domains. So orthopedics industry is one which has been heavily influenced. And there are a couple others that also, urology is one. But you will see some really jazzy stuff coming up over the next decade. Medtronic is going to come up with they've already launched in a couple of countries. They should be launching more. And then you'll see a host of other solutions coupled with surgical robotics coming in. And so therefore for would-be entrepreneurs or would-be innovators who want to look at what's next, well, this is next. So surgical robotics, an entire array of innovations around surgical robotics would be an area where some of you would be interested. The next one would be the health concierge concept, where technology starts to compensate. It takes the practitioner out of the equation. I'm not saying out, that's a little harsh word, but it does obviate the need for large scale, for too deep a communication, because now it's your so you are at your home and your Alexa basically talks to you about and there are sensors all across at your home. It's a smart home, so the Alexa knows that probably you're anxious or you're depressed. Alexa talks to you, counsels you. That's where the next step. Or you probably stressed out, your salt content, your electrolyte content in your sweat detects and tells you that you are dehydrated. Alexa suggests you to hydrate yourself and get a glass of water. Or you've forgotten your drugs and Alexa tells you, well, you need to take your drugs on time. So there are multiple ways in which there's a lot of technology being built around this. The overall umbrella technology is called Health Concierge. And so Alexa is just one example. There are other solutions which are getting into it. But then the final one where technology starts to compensate, but basically technology takes the practitioner out of the treatment, is something which right now is only the stuff of sci-fi movies, but I would encourage you to, go back. I didn't put a video here because it was too heavy a file, but I would encourage you to, watch this movie, Prometheus. I can get in murmurs if some people have actually watched it. There's a scene where the female protagonist, the typical Western sci-fi movies, there's an alien parasite inside her tummy, and now what she does is she gets into a cylindrical tube, and she programs the cylindrical tube to do a delivery, and the entire procedure, the entire anesthesia, the sterilization, anesthesia, incision, bleed control, ablation, and parasite removal and subsequent closure is all done in the cylindrical tube by a group of modular arms. So when a lot of people tell me, Doc, we don't need surgical robots, I said we need both. There's this big debate, we don't need bullet trains, we need both. We need space research, we also need primary healthcare, we need so you need to solve both those problems. That's how technology starts to converge, and at some point of time, you will see the Prometheus model pretty much active. Which brings us to the final question. If all of this is going to be done by technology, what happens to my fraternity, which is doctors? And so there's some interesting observations out here. I've had interesting conversations with all my colleagues across the ages, and they say, Ambuj, this is not acceptable. I said, it's not a question of not acceptable. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's happening right now. And so if it is happening, how do you actually look at the entire set of disruptions? And you look at how this has been mapped out. So you'll see on this diagram, right? So there's a sick child, there's a patient. You have a parent at home, a nurse, family doctor, and a specialist. When you start moving from the parent to the specialist, the clarity of rules is very simple. Parents, in terms of parents, they know, bachche ko ye chahiye, ye nahi chahiye, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm not going to do. It's very simple out there. The clarity of rules at the specialist is very deep, is very ambiguous, and that's because the skill required is pretty high. It's very deep out there. The skill required at the parent level is little. And so the entire concept of the future of how a doctor will, what role a doctor will have in the ecosystem will be, there will be task shifting. And so gradually, as you start looking at simplifying the roles, you will start looking at lesser or less deep skills to be required to perform those. Now, what I mean by that is, at some point of time, and this is an interesting book, if you haven't gone through it, it's a wonderful, so the author's name is Christensen Clayton. He's written a couple of books on disruptive innovations, and he focuses on healthcare a lot. I read this post pre my MBA, and this was around my MBA time, 2008, 2009. Wonderful. It changed the way I looked at healthcare. But till then, I was a very individual patient, clinician focused guy. But then when I looked at this, so what he says is, your primary care physician's practice, there are three components that will happen. There's a concept of rules-based precision medicine, which is that, if you have tuberculosis, rifampicin, isoniazid, paracetamide, ethambutol, the entire range of drugs that you have, this is what you need to give. These are the protocols, these are the lab tests, this is how you need to. That's rules-based precision medicine. Or, if you have COVID-19, so we had a cocktail of drugs that we used to give. All of that will start to converge from primary care physicians. Nursing practitioners at some point of time will start to gain. And so there's this intermediary entity. Oh, time over. Thank you so much. I actually wanted one of this. This is like I was wondering what was written on it. Now that we all know, I actually extended purposefully so that I could read. So no, but I'll finish it up in 10 seconds. So therefore they will hand off. So there's a concept of physician assistant, and so that concept. So there was a question in the morning about what is the incentive for nurses to, and I would say that they need a career path as well. The incentive doesn't only lie in monetary; it also lies in a career path. And I think physician assistance is a wonderful career path. It's already been done in the Western nations. India is at a point where we could do that as well. The second part is chronic disease management, which is, there's hypertension, there's diabetes, you have monitoring systems, you know how to titrate the drugs, and you simply do that. That part will also go into the nurses network. What will remain with physicians will be the wellness examinations and the counseling piece, the practice of intuitive medicine. So, and this is interesting, doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest her or his patients in the care of the human frame in a proper diet and in the cause and prevention of disease. Says who? Thomas Edison. Says when? A century back. I checked it. This is not fake news. Because I couldn't believe this. Someone was such a visionary that he wrote this 100 plus years back, but this is exactly where we are going. And so there is a lot of opportunity for doctors in terms of getting into the intuitive part of medicine. There's a lot of opportunity for allied health professionals to start picking up all those tasks, taking advantage of task shifting and leveraging technology accordingly. With this, I thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for your wise and wonderful session. We now open the floor for a discussion.
Good morning, sir. I'm Dr. Gaurav. I'm at Siddharth's son. Sir, my question to you is we have seen progression of AI and deep learning, let's say, from the past decade, that is 2010 to 2020. So, if we look at a case of like IBM Watson, now I have been following that since 2011. It promised a lot. It said it will replace all the radiologists, it will replace everything. But right now, if you look at the status of it in 2022, IBM has already broken it up. The headquarters is already divided to, IBM is divided to 7. The main problem that is cited, or other studies have cited, that artificial intelligence is not yet, we can call it as a general intelligence at the level of the human intelligence, and it cannot provide the insight into the treatment. So, for example, if there's a patch in the lung and an X-ray shows a patch, or on CT also it shows a patch. Now there are n number of diagnoses which cannot be correlated with the other pathologies that are present in the body. Because AI models, as for, we can't interchangeably use AI and machine learning, but let's say machine learning models, they work on either Bayesian or a neural network, whichever you're going to train it. But it's always going to see a particular pattern and then draw from it. It cannot influence other patient factors and then come to a different diagnosis which might be present. So, how do we progress with these things, sir?
We already are. So the way this works is you also have to understand that AI, ML, whichever way you want to look at, it's a relatively new science. We're still grappling with a lot of data. You can also say that it is nothing but just your own statistics data sets. You would say that as well. We work on the NDH and the National Digital Health Mission. We are building health sets. Our current aim is only to look at AI only at a population level, which is to say, if you get insights, statistical sets. What you're talking about is AI essentially starting to take the role of a human face. I tell you where the issue is. I'm just giving you sharing insights which I've had with other experts that I've talked to. They said, Ambuj, when a clinician is diagnosing a patient, there are a lot of conscious signals that he or she gets. There are a lot of subconscious signals that are working. And now what happens is, when you start building an AI platform, so to say, an algorithm, so to say, the conscious ones are those which are expressed. Right? I can be a wonderful doctor, I can treat patients, I have a magic wand. But for me to be able to know how I did that, there is a conscious bucket and a subconscious bucket of intelligence that I use. Conscious is a fact, subconscious isn't. And so therefore, a lot of what the algorithm will ultimately dish out will depend on which doctor have they talked to, who has been used to clinically, who is the clinical advisor for that program or the clinical advisors for that program. And so therefore, the data, the current stage is infancy at best. It's maybe 5 or 6 years, 3 years maybe, but not more than that. And the reason is you require richness of data. At the same time, the practitioner has to be able to annotate to a point where regular annotators come. And so therefore, I also have a homegrown company in which we look at AI, we annotate stuff for Google, Microsoft and stuff like that. And there, we have a very strict selection criteria of clinicians. I'm not saying that a clinician who cannot annotate is not a good clinician. Being a good clinician and being able to understand why I'm a good clinician are two different things. And so therefore, a lot of times clinicians have this intuitive sense. But if you ask them, they can't. And so therefore, that is the gap today. Of course, the gap also lies on the technologist side. They're not able to elicit the right answers. This gap will be filled over a period of time. The other part is a context should be. So when you said, lung, but then there are
say for some meds, and it's out in the bones, in the spine, and the liver. If you don't notice, that's context setting. Context setting will also get research. So give it some time. Let's not completely discard, the potential. I can see that we are moving there. Much as I, as a doctor, would want to say no, it's just okay. I can see that there will be a balanced way of healthcare delivery in the future. That's all I can say.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Dr. Saket. So, as I said, I head the biomedical department for Maharashtra EMS. So, my question is very basic, just to get the point of view from both of you dignitaries, is that what is the lifespan of any instrument, biomedical instrument, defined, or where can I find guidelines, Indian version, because I have worked here overseas as well. So there are defined protocols that a machine, whether working in best of its condition, it needs to be discarded in 2 or 3 years and be replaced. So my question remains very basic, that what are the guidelines in Indian scenario, as you both are coming from the background with a huge experience, and if there are, where can I find few for? Because in India, the experience so far in last 20 years I'm working, so unless the machine dies completely, because I'm using a product, I'll not name it, it's 8 years we are using it. Now the company has stopped manufacturing, I'm not getting spare parts. But no one is ready to tell me that what is its lifespan. So, just the background of my question. Thank you, sir.
So we do not have medical device regulations also in place. It was under drugs earlier. So at least we have medical device regulations now. We have government is trying their best to make sure that the devices are regulated as much as possible. And a part of that is if it's not regulated, then ISO 134. There's a procedure which needs to be followed. Coming to the medical device, if you're an ABH accredited hospital, there is standard calibration which you need to do for your devices which is there. If it is, I would urge that don't depend upon government. As a person, you want the best to be given to the patient, take care of your medical equipment system. It's a critical, if you look at the lifespan of a medical device, take the critical component, the failure of that critical component is a lifespan. So you can use as much as you want, build a regulation in place, but I would urge the hospitals take that consideration that okay, this is not good for the patient, at least keep that as in place and discard the device after that.
Sir, I'll modify my question. I will ask the 25 products you launched in the market, right? So have you mentioned any specific lifespan or any guidelines that it should be replaced after so many cycles? Like a projector has emission cycles for the bulb, right? That way.
So
if you could answer.
the user manual service now, what has to be replaced when, what component has to be serviced at what period. So there is a document which needs to be submitted to the regulatory body that this is what has to be. There's a documentation of medical dossier file has been created and submitted to CSC. And this is the component. So they go through, religiously go through the document and make sure that it is set.
Yeah, that's his answer. So they're basically the entire critical component, and every product actually has its own user manual, which actually documents it. Having said that, that is what we follow in terms of regulation, but we all know we are a country where you first use a shirt as a shirt, then you use it as a bag, then you use it as a bag, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so there's a cultural issue here as well.
Since there's a time constraint, I would like to now invite Dr. Samita Jadhav, Deputy Director, Symbiosis Institute of Health Sciences, to felicitate our speakers.
With this, we would close today's pre-conference symposium. Now, we request you to move to the courtyard of Symbiosis Medical College for Women for lunch. The post-lunch session will start by 2:15 p.m. and we request you all to be gathered back by 2:10 p.m. And please visit our FOSH stalls. Thank you.